Thank you so much. We'll move on to our next participant until the panel's finished, and then we'll ask questions and finish up our day with...
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Ted Angelo with the Association of California Life and Health Insurance Companies. And I will try to be brief today. I know we've had a lot of testimony here, and it's a compelling issue. I talked about this a couple of years ago at a hearing from the predecessor talking about this issue, and it's an ongoing one that we're trying to solve, and this panel is looking at possible solutions. So I won't go too much into what people have talked about statistically, but I will say a little bit about the fact that we can't underscore enough the need for the protection that long-term care insurance provides, especially in the private market, even though it's been dwindling, as we've heard, for people purchasing it. The cost of providing it has continued to increase significantly over the last decade. And while it's great that Californians are living longer, poor initial longevity and lapse assumptions when the product was developed have resulted in larger than expected premium increases. And to speak to the underwriting, and I think you did a good job of reflecting what the private market must do in terms of underwriting being a key component of reflecting the risk and writing for it. So when you have pre-existing conditions, unless you have a mandate like you do in the healthcare realm now, you have to be able to reflect and rate those risks, whatever they may be, and what they may, how they may be involved in future claims. I won't go too much into the rates increases because we've heard a bit about that. What California has done and was the leading state in this was rate stabilization efforts that have occurred twice over the past 10 years. Large rate increases serve as a disincentive to purchase coverage. And what happens with that is it has a devastating result to the family's budget when you have a rate increase, and to the state, as these costs are ultimately transferred to the Medi-Cal program. So it puts more of a burden on the state, as we've heard. In order to protect against this outcome and ensure that Californians will continue to have a broad choice of affordable long-term care insurance options, I'll briefly review what protections are currently in place and what options may be considered. California has premium rate stability protections that I alluded to. It requires 85% of all rate increases be returned to policyholders and benefits. It's the toughest in the nation, and in 2012 it was updated, so increasing disclosures for policy provisions, limitations on asset investment yields that companies can use to adjust rates, stricter loss ratio requirements from the 85% that must ensure more premium dollars go into benefits, and allowing the department to improve partial rate increases that are below what is actuarially justified. We have to have an actual justification, and so does the department, before a rate can be improved, but they're allowing for lesser because obviously the price assumptions have gone up dramatically, and we want to have the viability of the product remain. While it's not perfect, rate stabilization has kept increases significantly below those experienced in not rate stabilized processes. So the purchase awareness and barriers that we have seen, there's low consumer motivation. It seems that it's deemed a lower priority than health insurance, life insurance, college funding, which has increased because of the cost there, and retirement savings, which we're all encouraged to do. So the dollar's just being stretched. There's limited awareness to a certain degree and misconceptions about the needs and costs. And the product structure, we've talked about the complexity, the multiple features, multiple coverages and features that led to higher price points. The use it or lose it aspect of it, even though there is some benefit to if you do decide to lapse that you have, it's something like in the auto and homeowner realm. You know you're paying that premium in case something happens, and you're mandated to do it to a certain degree, either by your mortgage holder or by state law. But you know you might not ever see that result. It doesn't happen the same way on long-term care in terms of the purchase need, whether it's because there's no mandate or whatever the factors are involved. And just distribution barriers, there's a limited number of sellers, and the expertise of the folks that are selling the product is starting to age. and that's an issue that we have to deal with. So how do we drive younger people, which is part of what we talked about today, to take action? There are some, the private market will not solve this problem, and the industry must innovate to be part of the solution. I think some of these new ideas have been discussed today, such as one is to expand group long-term care coverage, which is typically offered as a voluntary benefit for the employees in employment, just like you would have as your health care or your disability income coverage in the private market. Employees can retain coverage, and it's portable. So that's one thing to think about, is incentivizing, and maybe through tax incentives for employers to offer group-based long-term care coverage. One thing, reducing regulatory barriers for new products is something. It's a broad statement, but it's something. We have very comprehensive statutes, as the partnership knows well, in what's required. One thing we were able to do a couple of years ago is allow for accelerated life insurance benefits. So while it's not a comprehensive long-term insurance policy, and it can't be marketed as such, it allows for chronic and catastrophic illnesses to be funded out of your life insurance benefit that you wouldn't otherwise have if you couldn't afford to purchase a long-term care insurance policy. So those are the types of innovations that we're looking at. It's slow, but we're getting there. Tax incentives for simplified coverage options should be considered. That will take significant legislative and regulatory review. New products are being considered, shorter-term benefits that are clear but offer consumer protections, combination products, public-private partnership ideas that we talked about, and marketing to more middle-aged, middle-income individuals, and ways to incentivize doing this. So I think I'll leave my comments there, but just kind of food for thought as we move through this.
Thank you so much. We have one last speaker. Let's hear that speaker, and please, then we'll weigh in.
Good afternoon,
Good
Madam Chair.
afternoon.
I'm Olivia Mastry with the Collective Action Lab, and I'm the lead consultant for the Leading Age Pathways Initiative. And that initiative is a cross-sector, multi-stakeholder collaboration. While based in D.C., it has representatives from all over the country working together on two principal goals: to foster long-term service and support financing reform at a federal level, as well as to foster LTSS financing reform at a state level, and it's working in parallel to achieve both. I'm just going to talk ever so briefly about the federal, only to set enough content to look at what the states can do in this area, because that really is the issue that I think you can dig down into in this work. The report that the Leading Age Pathways Initiative produced in 2013 essentially was a report that strategically, rather than chasing a particular answer around reform, instead asked what are the questions we need to ask ourselves and what are the possible pathways for reform as a country. And those pathways apply at a state level as well. You've heard about many of these already from previous speakers today, so I won't go into them. I will only show you that they represent a spectrum that varies principally on what's the role of the private individual and personal responsibility and what is the role of government and public programs. And each of these options or pathways varies a bit in how those roles are balanced. So given that as the overall spectrum, you'll see how that can play out at the state level. Before I go into the state level, I will reinforce Leading Age is really the third leg of that three-legged stool around the economic modeling you've heard about. So on 5 of the pathways I just showed you, there will be economic modeling, and you'll see the results of that in the fall, and that is the modeling that's done in conjunction with the SCAN Foundation and AARP. So at the state level, what we're trying to do is foster conversations and reform around state LTSS reform, not presuming what the reform answers will be for any state, but instead providing a roadmap and technical assistance and support in getting traction on those conversations and getting momentum. So the first thing that we've done is outlined a roadmap that other states have used to their benefit in this conversation and that have helped them move from this wide open blank slate that you might feel you're looking at today to actual specific changes that you'd want to see at the state level around LTSS financing reform. And you'll see the various steps of that in this roadmap. In the roadmap, however, once the group is convened and they begin to set their goals, what is it we're even trying to accomplish? There are many problems you can try to solve in the LTS financing reform. The first step is to identify what are the problems we're trying to solve, and then from that, what principles will guide us and keep us accountable as we try to solve those problems. Once a group does that at the state level, the next step then is to look at what's the menu of options we might pursue at a state level that would meet those problem goals we've set, as well as satisfy the guidelines we've set. And we've really organized them for states in 4 buckets. A state might choose simply to focus on raising the level of awareness, education, understanding about LTSS needs at the public level in order to foster personal action. A second bucket, which again you've heard of from other speakers, is let's re-energize the long-term care insurance market. Let's focus on what are the private market reforms we can foster in order to increase uptake, to increase affordability and simplification of what's available. Often states that take this path do focus on that middle income group who do see a void in the market right now in terms of what they can afford. A third bucket of reform could be around looking at public programs at the state level, a public insurance program, whether it's front-end or catastrophic, and you've heard wrinkles of all of those options today. But the concept is what might we do at a public governmental level in conjunction with the private market reform. And then last is looking at what can we do around the Medicaid program itself in terms of rebalancing more towards home and community-based care or more effective delivery models. What can the Medicaid delivery system do to add to this solution set? A state can choose something from all 4 of the buckets. It could do a combination approach, or it might choose to just focus on one. But just helping states see what the options are and align those options with their goals and principles is an important part of the process. The hope here, again, is not to presume or push any particular solution on any state, but to catalyze and jumpstart the kind of conversations we know need to happen. States will be able to accelerate change faster than we might at a federal level, and states will also tell us what they can do in terms of reform and what we need to rely on the federal government to do where states can't succeed. So that's really the goal in starting these conversations. I'd like to just share 3 states' experiences with you so you have some examples of what other states have been doing. I'd like to say it's 3 of many, but you're hearing about the 3 of the 3. So you're really on the cutting edge here. The first state is Minnesota that I would talk about. I would say that they're probably the farthest along in this conversation, although Hawaii is a close second. They started by focusing on education and awareness. That's always a natural entry point for many states. But now they're very focused on how do they increase affordability and access to new products or enhanced products that already exist in the private market with a focus on that middle income sector. And then they're also looking at Medicaid reforms. So they're drawing essentially from 3 of the 4 buckets that I showed you. Some initiatives that are in the legislative process as we speak are creating an education and information center around LTSS, essentially a one-stop shop for meeting your needs. They're looking at transformational protection products, so something that, for example, is a term life insurance product that then can transfer at the point of retirement into an LTSS product. So it's a very natural process. You're already in the flow, you already have a product, and it's more of a transitional product as opposed to a new purchase, which we know is difficult and daunting for many consumers. They're also looking at a couple of public product options. These aren't in legislation right now, but would Minnesota want to have a catastrophic program that's public or a small starter insurance product for a very short period of time and a low daily amount for a front-end coverage. And then they're also looking at adding a long-term care benefit to the Medicare supplement offerings in the state, so essentially a Medicare add-on. So that's what Minnesota is looking at right now. Now, Hawaii has been in this conversation since the 1990s. They start, they stop, they start again, and they're really at an interesting place in that they've looked at many different options, and they found that only 4 of the proposals they considered out of what some would say were hundreds when they started really had feasibility, and after a feasibility study, the one that they felt was the most economically and actuarially sound was a social insurance model offering a front-end or preliminary coverage with a modest daily benefit built in. So early needs would be met under this plan. What's changed in this product as it's evolved over time is now they're looking at funding it through a sales tax, which makes it more palatable from a political will and public will standpoint because they have a high rate of tourism. And so people not living in the state will help fund their long-term service and support program. The Office of Aging is also considering and commencing a public awareness campaign. So again, they're choosing from two buckets, a public insurance model and an awareness and education model. What's very interesting, though, and it shows that there's really no answer to this question that is solely private or solely public, that you do have elements of both, is that the long-term care insurers, the private market insurers in Hawaii, have already said that if a social insurance model is adopted, they will step in with supplemental products to offer wraparound products as well. And so you can see that anywhere you enter in this, any solution you choose, you will probably supplement. Whether you go public first, you'll see a private market reform element step in. If you start with private market, you'll start to see the gaps of what that can do and likely need to consider public options. So just a good example of how that's playing out in Hawaii. And lastly, Washington is a little earlier in this process in that they're looking at legislative bills that would allow for a study of two different options. One is a public program, just like we've just discussed, that would be funded through a payroll tax deduction and offer early and front-end care, and also looking at a public-private reinsurance risk-sharing model to create a reinsurance pool to allow this market to be a little bit safer for the private long-term care insurer to enter into, and also then create a more stable and consistent product, ultimately benefiting the consumer. If that bill passes, both studies would be completed by year-end 2015. So by fall to year-end, we should be getting a lot more information from both states and at a national level that might help shape your process. And then lastly, the other states that are beginning the conversation around LTSS reform is California. So a conversation in this regard following the roadmap will begin Thursday. And the other states that are starting in the second half of 2015 are Nebraska, Kansas, Texas, Indiana, and Ohio. Massachusetts has actually had this conversation, but they got stalled. They now have a new administration, so they'll be reinvigorating their work. But that's just a status and some examples for you that I hope help from other states' views. Thank you.
Thursday in Los Angeles. I mean, Thursday will it be in Los Angeles?
No, right here in Sacramento. Yes.
What?
It'll be at the AARP offices on Thursday from 10 to 2. Is that right, Joanne? Yes. Mm-hmm.
We'll be there.
Great. Mm-hmm. Thanks. 10 to 2.
10 to 2.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions? I would like to say thank you to Ms. Senator Carol Liu for coming. And I want to also make sure that everyone sees the report on aging and long-term care that she authored from last year. A lot of information that we're talking about today is contained in these pages, and I hope we can next year have something that says we made it, and it'll be much thinner. Because we were successful, we did it. Mr. McGuire.
Thank you so much, Chairwoman, and I do appreciate all your work today, and thank you for bringing us together. And you're absolutely right to Senator Liu for her amazing work last year and bringing that forward. Thank you very, very much. And it's really good to see you, sir.
Well, wait, she needs to have a couple of words because she's leaving again.
I just apologize for bopping in and out, but I have to leave again. But I really do appreciate you, and you're starting this conversation about long-term care financing is something that we're all going to have to take a deep breath and try to find a way to do this for all the folks that are aging, which is everybody. So we do look forward to trying to find a solution to this, or at least create a plan or a pathway to make sure that we are all going to age well. Yes. Yeah. Thank you. But thank you very much.
Thank you so much for being a part of this this hearing. I know that earlier I mentioned to the audience that we would have to be in and out, and everyone has had a bill to present. Everyone has had something to do, so we understand if you have to leave. Mr. McGuire.
Thank you so much. And just, Madam Chair, just a quick question for Ms. Chris there, and that is in regards to, I know the legislative analyst, I think, is looking at, I don't think there's a firm number right now, particularly for those that may be near poverty level or at poverty level, below poverty level, and their long-term care needs. And if there's been any discussion about state potentially putting some dollars in to incentivize, because you take a look at the care that those individuals would be able to provide longer term if we get out in front of it, and frankly the savings that we'd see. Has there been any discussion, and can you just catch us up on that as well? Because I think the LAO has been focusing on that in regards to potential long-term costs.
I apologize, not that I'm aware of, but I need to go back and get back to you for sure on that.
That would be great.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Mr. Gibson, thank you so much for being in and out today. I really appreciate it.
I think that's all of us coming in. There's a lot of bills up. But I particularly want to say thank you very much for certainly enlightening me on this growing issue that we see that's taking place with, again, 10,000 individuals per day becoming eligible for not only services and things of that nature. One who had a father who passed away, but nonetheless he was receiving services, and the families get, you know, in a quandary in terms of making sure that you provide the best care, especially when you can't provide that as a caregiver to your mom or to your dad. And so we rely on programs out there that will help them through life. And so my goal is to certainly to try to find a particular policy solution that may not speak to everyone, but it certainly will be better than what we have. And I'm particularly interested in not only, I think it was Hawaii, but what legislation, do we have any information that can be shared with us that will be forthcoming, that will help us as we move through this policy era, this season, that we can wrap our minds and our arms around some kind of policy fix, even if it's just a pilot, just so how we can look and test the waters and see how we can work to a resolve that we're certainly trying to create as we move forward and move swiftly, because time is not on our side right now. So that's a question whoever wants to
Well, we
offer.
can certainly make a few things available. One is the Leading Age Pathways report does outline the different policy options and even scores them in a way that might help. And then we can provide reports that have come out of Hawaii, Massachusetts, Minnesota. Washington doesn't yet have a report or a study, but it may give you guidance in terms of how other states have approached this in terms of their policy approaches. And then to the extent we see results of any of that work, we can make sure that it's shared at this level here in this state.
Well, I, for one, would love to get a copy of it. And then, two, I would like to get information of the authors who authored those pieces of legislations within those states, because I want to reach out to them and have conversations with them and get their best practices and things of that nature. And, you know, maybe on my break, actually visit to see how these are actually working. Because, again, time is not on our side.
Well, you said it, and I was going to suggest that we do visit. I had spoken, I spoke with the senator from Hawaii whenever I came to Washington, D.C. to be part of the caregiver workshop that AARP was having. And she told me about the stops and the starts and how people were really interested, and then they would back off and they weren't interested. And now she said, we're going full. This is her work. This is her life's work. And she's so excited about it. So I would like to connect back with her again, because I see that she's been able to take it to the next level.
Yes.
And that's what California has to do, is we do have to take this not only conversation, but to make something happen. It doesn't make, we could sit here and talk all day long, but what is the result of this hearing? What is the result of this hearing going to be? And that's when the rubber meets the road. And so I'm excited about your presentations. Thank you. I'm sorry we didn't have any questions for you today, but the panel did such a good job. And we have heard we've heard themes throughout the whole day. So I thank you for coming, and I would like to, before I close this hearing, ask if there's any public comment. Unfortunately, you only have 2 minutes.
That's all I need.
Okay.
All I need. How about you?
Hi. You want to go first?
Yeah, sure. I can go first. He was. All right. Deborah Doctor couldn't be here today, but she wanted you guys to point out to a report that was done about 2009 called Community Choices. And in this report, it talks about IHSS. And I just wanted to bring up some highlights in that report. And one of the things that we're concerned about is the share of costs of IHSS. We know that folks have an income level this much, and the cost in the federal poverty level is this much, and their share of cost is this much. We have a real issue with that. So if you want people to age in place and stay at home, we need to fix that issue. Number two, I have a partner, and he's still working. And I don't know what's going to happen if he gets disabled. And I know that I won't be able to take care of him because I'm disabled myself. And so we need to take a look at a caregiver resource center again. We need to go back to that. That was a very good program that we had. And above that, we had the respite care program. The respite program was amazing, not only for seniors, but for parents who have children with disabilities, to give them the opportunity so they can take care of their other children, or if they have a job, or if they want to have some rest. And that's another thing that I'm very concerned about. And the other thing that was in the report and brought up again here is the fact about assets. We must fix this. I know I'm on Social Security, and I know that I can only save $2,000 unless I'm putting it in somewhere and saving it through a bond or something like that, or I'm using it through school. I can't go out and maybe make a house payment. If something was to happen to my partner, there's no guarantee that I can make a house payment on $2,000, even if I saved it that much anyway. Plus, it costs money. For homeowners, that's the other issue. If their partner passes away, or if they need any kind of respite care, or if they need to save money just for that rainy day, $2,000 is not going to help them.
Yes.
Property taxes are expensive enough as it is, and I think we should take a look at that. And I thank you for having this hearing.
I want you to know that we did ask in a letter to the budget chair if she would restore the $8 million in our Caregivers Resource Center. So stay on top, and let's look, and you be talking to other members and talk to the governor too, and everyone,
and
make this an issue.
Thank you. And as we go along with the IHSS reform, please, let's find a way to bring back respite caregiving. It was a small cost, but it did big benefits.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Well, Randy Hicks, Californians with Disability Rights.
Okay. Thank you, Randy. Okay, we have Louis Brownstone.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Louis Brownstone. I'm the chairman of California Long-Term Care Insurance Services. I want to assure you that I can run my brokerage very well without being here. I'm here because I'm an individual with 24 years of long-term care insurance experience, and am very worried about the tsunami that's going to hit this state in the next 15, 20 years if something isn't done. I want to get back to long-term care insurance. Don't give up on it. There are a lot of changes going on within the industry. It's in transition. It needs to become viable. It's not viable in California at this time, and there are many factors. I'm going to propose 7 possible solutions to making long-term care insurance more viable in the state. The industry trends. Most of the policies sold in the future will not cover the catastrophic risk. The middle market must be penetrated. The industry knows this. Something is better than nothing is going to be the mantra of people like me in the future. Affordability is crucial. Simple is good. We're going to see fewer riders, more basic protection, resulting in lower premiums, penetrating the middle market. Policies designed to solve more than one need, including linked benefits, offering long-term long-term care protection in addition to other benefits, traditional long-term care benefits, which look a great deal like life insurance, that will require completely changed legislation and regulation. And I'm thinking that the worksite market could explode in future years. Not yet, but when HR people become more comfortable with the Affordable Care Act, the next thing they're going to look at is long-term care protection. The solutions, number one, the regulation is excessive, it's outdated, most of it is 20 years old. Policies are no longer being sold, as Bonnie said, to frail, vulnerable women in their 70s with very little financial acumen. They're being sold to 57-year-olds, people in their 50s with a great deal of education, all their marbles still intact, and the ability to think. Second, be accepting to new ideas in product design. This is going to require new regulation. Change the law if needed to accommodate a good new idea to enter the marketplace. Number three, the 2 to 3 year time period it takes the California Department of Insurance to approve a new filing is unacceptable. The latest products with good solutions are mostly unavailable in our state and are being sold in almost all the states at this time. And this includes most of the short-term products and the linked products. Number four, update the codes to make our laws more compatible with those in other states while at the same time maintaining our unique consumer protections. This will speed the filing process and avoid legal wrangling over terminology, which now seems to be rampant from what I hear. Number five, severely reduce the list of exempt assets, enabling rich people to shift and shield their assets in order to qualify for Medi-Cal. We cannot afford this kind of gaming the system in the future. Number six, make major revisions in agent education. Emphasis should be on new product designs rather than on Medi-Cal qualifications. I've been through classes on Medi-Cal qualifications 10 times. I'm pretty sure I couldn't pass a test on what those are. The California Partnership you've just heard about, it's on life support. It's the best idea that we've had in this state in 25 years. It needs to be resuscitated. It needs to either elevate its status within the Department of Health Services, or if the Department of Health Services would not support it, to put it under the Department of Insurance or under some other administrator that will give it proper recognition. It has to be recognized as a future producer of revenue for the state of California rather than as an expense. We should speed the approval of filings of new partnership policies with increased marketability. They're on the drawing boards. Late is better than never, and it's late, but they're coming. So give the partnership some funds to educate the public. This is vital. Now, the goal is to increase the penetration of the target audience owning long-term care insurance from 7% to 20%. This is a partial solution to your problem, not the whole problem. The issue is, how are we going to die? That's what's facing you. Are we going to die, many, many citizens of this state, millions, in nursing facilities, neglected, places they don't want to be? Are they going to die in the comfort of their own home, surrounded by family? And I'm here because I think your decisions can make a big difference in this regard and improve the way we finally check out. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Brownstone. Ooh, this has been quite a day. The information has been rich. I really appreciate everyone coming out and being a part of it, especially my colleagues who have, as you see, all of their names up here, have been able to come in and be a part of this hearing. And Mr. McGuire, I really, really, really look forward to working with you more. And I do look forward to that trip to Hawaii so that we can look at this issue. I was thinking about Japan, but because the Japanese legislators came here last year, and they looked at our whole program and sat down with us and told us how we could do a better, how we were 20 years behind them. And 20 years ago, they were right where we are today. So now they have it so that every senior in Japan is taken care of. And it's not by the government, but by each person who put in the money to take care of themselves as they got older. They start at 40, though. So all you young folks out there, Mr. Gibson and Mr. McGuire, know that we're going to be coming to say we probably need to look at some interesting models. So I thank you again. I thank staff for hanging in here with us and for putting this together for us. Thank you. And this hearing is now adjourned.